we're more than happy to explain anything if you guys notice something, maybe need a little bit of clarification on it.
All right, it looks like we're getting started. They're going into this first shmup sequence after this little, I think it's 1:31, something like that. I've done it enough times that I should know, but but it's a decently long little cutscene here. We're not going to do anything. They're just going to kind of chill back, wait for a second, relax. How many of the 5 soft locks were from me? Actually, none, Tech. Believe it or not. I did have a crash, though, which was pretty unfortunate. But none of the soft locks were...
He finishes.
What? Sorry?
I said Shabu's a champ, so he finishes his runs either way.
Yeah, I let everyone suffer through my horrible run. Anyways, so 2 players kind of on... I'm gonna be honest here, kind of opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of times. I'll be interested to see where B1ackGoldSaw goes with this. I feel like it's definitely a possibility that he could PB. We've seen a lot of PBs in this tournament, and I feel like B1ackGoldSaw has something waiting. He's got a good time that's built up inside of him.
Yeah, for sure. And this tournament, with a lot of new runners in it, we've seen a lot of PBs. Even from some of the older runners, we've had PBs in these tournament matches so far. So definitely think he can do it. You are right, though, about kind of 2 different polar ends of the spectrum for times. Mytherium, a pretty veteran top 10 time on the normal leaderboard. He's also a very hard runner. B1ackGoldSaw, he's been around the community for a pretty long time from what I know, but he's relatively newer runner.
So one thing I'd like to point out real quick is just that this shmup sequence, this is the entire game, guys. You're going to be watching this for about an hour and a half. I hope you like it because, boy, that was a total lie. It's not a shmup sequence. These are very small sections. Well, one larger section, but we'll talk about that later. It looks like Myth not going for the second AI minute. There are 2 AI minutes you can do in this opening shmup sequence, and basically all we're trying to do is just destroy these enemies as quickly as possible so that the next wave of enemies appears and you can take them out. It just makes it go by a little bit faster. That's pretty much all we're doing for the shmup sequence is just optimized combat. One thing I will say about the difference in the 2 runners is we're probably going to see some pretty big differences in routing, especially saying that Myth was a very hard runner, and I know that he really loves that category and takes a lot of inspiration for his normal A route during especially these pools matches from the very hard category route, which is slightly different, so we'll be able to see some of that stuff, I believe.
We had a question asking how long does a casual first-time playthrough take? I think it honestly comes down to the player. I don't know about you, Shabu. I think the first playthrough for me for A ending took about 6 to 8 hours, and then the rest of the game took probably about another 20. But I'm pretty slow.
I'm just switching audio over to Mytherium because he does have a slight lead, and you can hear his music a little bit better, which is pretty nice. The music here is fantastic. For me, did I interrupt you? I'm so sorry.
No, not at all.
You're perfect. Looks like Myth is trying to go for these small angles. Not quite getting inside that pipe. Oh, very close. One thing that's interesting, though, is they're going to be taking a little bit of intentional damage here to be using up some recoveries, and that's going to allow them to go through their menus a little bit quicker. It's a very small optimization, but an optimization nonetheless. As I said, just very quick, fast-paced, and optimized combat here, just trying to get through the shmup sequence as quickly as possible so that they can get to the actual meat and potatoes of this game. But yeah, as Warsaw was saying, if you play A and then stop, you are literally not playing like 4/5 of the game. That is correct. There are multiple endings, and you're really missing out if you end at A ending. You really should check them all out. I would encourage doing all A to Z runs, or all A to Z endings. But we're going into this third person kind of beat 'em up section. If you want to talk a little bit about that, Six.
Sure. Yeah, this is how we see most of the game typically played, and it's one of the things that makes this run so interesting. A lot of the things that you can do, the combat, the movement, all in this third-person mode are just very fluid. You can do a lot of crazy things, as we'll see coming up in the run. But again, in this section of the opening prologue, it's all about clearing the waves as quick as possible. You'll see Mytherium now coming up on the first boss of the game, and if anybody has played the game through casually, you'll recognize this boss for sure, but you're going to see the runners do something a little bit different here. We have a little tech we use. Do you want to...
Six.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm getting something from our analyst desk. Apparently we are using RTA timers, by the way, so we are not going to be using load lists. We're going to be seeing exactly the same timers on both screens. Normally there would be a bit of a distinct difference between the two, but we are doing RTA, which is just real-time attack, and that's just basically timers running. We're not caring about loads. Both people are doing RTA, so this should be interesting. What did you want me to explain? Did you want me to explain?
Oh, no, I was just going to explain damage glitching, but we'll do that at Marks 2, I guess. Okay. We'll see the runners now coming up into the first movement tech sections of the game. Mytherium doing a thing called crane skip. It's just sort of like, it's not fully out of bounds, it's sort of just like running a unintended route, I guess, because you can typically go back there to grab some items, but instead we'll just use some movement tech to walk ourselves back through the level.
One very interesting thing about this game is that our attacks give us, a lot of our attacks actually give us height. And so we're going to be using that to our advantage a lot of the time, as well as SD, which is kind of what people call the Swiss Army knife of this run, because it has so many uses, and we'll point that out when it is used later. But basically, again, this is much like the shmup sequences where they're just trying to take out these enemies as quickly as possible, and we're going to see some interesting things because our attacks mess with our movement a lot. And so, as I was saying, it allows us to get height, but it also allows us to get some speed too. We're coming into the probably most difficult high jump with a delayed lift and then a few strings of attacks. Oh, Myth drops an input, it looks like. But he's a top runner. This should be no problem for him. That's it. He's going to get on top of there. This is actually a very difficult skip. A little bit of spaghetti. Chef Myth serving up a tiny, very small plate. Also, someone asked us what our favorite endings are. I should note that that was an off-screen, out-of-bounds, just high jump. We're not supposed to be here. It's pretty clear, but you know, I thought I would point that out in case you are watching, but are not actually, or listening or not actually watching. And we're going to get into another section that's just optimized combat.
Favorite ending for me, though, I think it was probably C or D ending. Probably C ending.
I think that, obviously, I despise ending K with all of my heart, but ending Y might be my favorite just because of running A to Z. And when you get ending Y, it is just like huge weight lifted off your shoulders. B1ackGoldSaw navigating this part of the factory very well as well, and Myth just coming up on Silo 3, finishing that up pretty quickly. I think he's probably going to go for angle swag. I would imagine he's going to go for every swaggy thing possible. This saves less than a second. Oh! Myth! Myth, you've let me down!
For the angle swag. Unbelievable.
My confidence in Myth is
hyping us up, saying he's going to do all these swag skips.
I'm shook to my core right now, Six.
There should be another facility across that bridge. It's a bit of
a just crazy. So another thing we'll see a lot of the runners doing in GoldSaw, I think he does it in a second here. You'll see them use lasers on these silo sections to just try and optimize the clear time by wiping out as many enemies as fast as possible. Better lasers in these sort of sections will get you, quicker clear time. So you want to go for, like here, you can laser and try and get 4 of the enemies, so he just has to kill 1 instead quickly. Looking like he's not opting to go into it. We'll see Mytherium now starting on Marks 2, and he's going to be doing another thing we'll see him doing here called damage glitching. I meant to explain it at Marks 1, but essentially in this game, when you have the small sword equipped on the heavy slot, if you throw out a heavy attack, throws out the sword and it spins, and I think does 5 hits of damage or something like that.
Dash plus a heavy attack, and it looks like Myth actually getting a second phase here. This is a chance for B1ackGoldSaw to actually catch up in Prologue, which is pretty huge, especially if we get punches. But damage glitch is a dash plus a heavy. Sorry, Six. Your train of thought. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good. Yeah, damage. running and evading plus a heavy will throw out the sword in the same way, but it'll do about 5 times the amount of damage. Definitely makes for some crazy quick clears on these bosses for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts, especially when you combine that with taunting. So taunting, you just flash your flashlight as quickly as possible, and it's pretty nuts. But the enemy will glow red most of the time. Some enemies cannot be taunted, but it's not super important. But you taunt, and that does a 1.5% damage increase to you and to them, unless you have a taunt up ship, which I don't want to spoil things, but we may or may not see from one of our runners here. And then you can also buff, which is a 50% damage increase. And so you do all of that, and then 5 times damage. It's an absolute nuts amount of damage. And you'll see these guys just blow through these bosses very, very quickly. And enemies, mobs, everything. Everything will melt before the might of 2B's sword.
So we'll see Mytherium now here getting the first kind of bit of fully random RNG in the game. After the cutscene cuts here, Engels will throw one of his attack options. The projectile ones are the most optimal. They're only within like a second of each other. But if you get something like punches or like rocket punches or a clap, punches will lose you about 20 seconds in the run, and a clap I think loses 3 or 4. Thankfully,
so clap is about 6 seconds, and punches is about 23, I think, 22 or 24, somewhere in there. So I'm picking the middle ground. I think 23. Myth just showing off some of the movement tech that you can do, because when you're chilling on this pipe, the correct pipe, left pipe, you're actually out of bounds very slightly, and it just means that Engels can't hit you, and you just kind of chill and wait for this time section to go out.
Definitely, left pipe is best pipe.
I'm so glad we're on the same page.
Detractions.
I'm very happy we're on the same page. I didn't want to have an argument.
Yeah, it can definitely be get very heated when you get into an argument with a right pipe zealot.
Yeah, they are brutes, and it's unfortunate, but sometimes you have to reason with them.
Alright, so we'll see Mytherium now going into the second section after these missiles here.
No, it looks like he's not quite at that part. So he's going to do some fancy movement tech here. Do you want to explain, or should I? I guess, okay, so that's a double lift, which is pretty nuts. So the lift is something that we do with the light sword that gets us a little bit of extra height, but the fun thing is it has a startup animation, and if you're in that startup animation and you hit the ground on a slope or anything, the game thinks, oh, you still have your jump. It refreshes your jump, and you can do another lift, hence the name double lift. It's pretty self-explanatory when you think about it like that. Wow. Oh, I thought he got all of them.
That was pretty good, except for the one that slipped out, but those ninjas can be very annoying at the top of angles there. A lot of them will just jump out of the way of your laser or any of your damage glitches. We'll see GoldSaw, he actually did get punches on the angle, so he is going to be coming behind an extra 20 seconds out of the prologue.
That's really unfortunate. That's just, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of RNG in this A-ending run, but that is RNG, and it is unfortunate that BlackGoldSaw got that.
I think we know why it really happened, though. It's because he uses right pipe.
That's correct. I mean, we say it's RNG to be polite, because, you know, the left pipers are generally a little bit more kind, I would say, but, you know, it's alright. World record has left pipe. Anyways, this part's just another little timed section where dialogue's going to come in. He's going to be waiting for a specific thing of dialogue. Again, this is a little bit of RNG. If Mytherium on the right gets an attack that after 2B says, shut up, right there. Oh, gets pretty unfortunate RNG there. You want a punch directly after that. That's going to lose a little bit of time. That's just not his fault at all. Some people have ideas of positioning, but he unfortunately gets a whole nother attack, which is a little bit of time loss. That's just kind of unfortunate.
Alright, GoldSaw coming up on the ninjas now. He had a pretty sketchy looking double lift jump. Pretty good laser there, but he was underneath the platform at the top of his other lift, but he manages to pull it out, keeping his time pretty tight here.
Perfect. Bouncing back to Mytherium in true awesome video game fashion. We're going to steal Engels, the big robot boy, his arm, and just use it to beat him up. And to quicken that, we're going to do heavy attacks and then dashes to cancel the heavy attack and do another one very quickly 3 times. And he's out. And there you go. That's the end of prologue.
We'll see him now coming up on the next major boss section of the game, the classic menu bosses. A lot of menuing here and option selection, as the game has you sort of reboot and set your options in the bunker here. Not too bad once you're pretty experienced with it, but some of them can be pretty annoying when you do try to set them and you set the wrong option. Got to go back and set it, lose a little bit of time.
I mean, you say not bad, but we see people mess up on this stuff all the time, especially SD, which is just you cancel that real quick and get through. Menu percent is kind of a hidden boss. People underestimate it. Let's see if he goes. Nope, not whisper percent. That's probably good.
Warsaw saying, is there a category to see who's fastest to blow up the bunker? I do not think there's a category for that yet. We do have some pretty funny categories, like mackerel, for example. But
oh no, let's not. I want to be angry today. I want to have a good time. So we're gonna. Mackerel is how fast you can eat the fish, and it's actually a really interesting category. Now having the hardest skip in the game, but we're gonna see something on Myth's screen here. He's gonna do a dialogue cancel. He's gonna. Oh no, he's not. He's just gonna. All right, Myth just disappointing me at every turn.
Something that you can do in a lot of these sort of sections is you can do a thing called a partner dialogue cancel, where you talk to 9S as you're running up on the trigger. And sort of in the talking dialogue where you're talking to 9S, you walk forward into the trigger for the next cutscene, and it'll just cancel it out. Some people opt to do it there. It doesn't save a bunch of time, saves a little bit, but it can be kind of hard to set up. As we see Mytherium just opting for the sort of clean, I'm just going to jump through the walking section of the cutscene.
Myth getting roasted in chat here, saying Myth going with the anti-swag route. Which, you know, I kind of have to agree right now. I mean, I'm sure he'll impress me later with some rooting stuff, but like for right now,
so far he's just played it really safe, and that's you know, that's fair if you want to play it safe in a race. But we came in with the expectation of seeing some swag.
Yeah, I wanted to have some fun. I didn't want to commentate vanilla ice cream. You know,
exactly.
No, by the way, we're totally joking. Myth is a top runner. He's been with us for a long time, so we like to mess around with a lot of the top runners. But let's see if B1ackGoldSaw goes for this actually. Since Mytherium is in a shmup segment. Sorry, this is another top runner. He's just gonna flick that stick and try and take out those flyers as quickly as possible. That's what he does. This shmup sequence is just again optimized combat, trying to get through them as quickly as possible. Let's see if B1ackGoldSaw on the left goes for this dialogue cancel, so you can see an example of it. Okay, it looks like he is. You can just dash back there, and then he's going to pull up this menu and then try to walk into this trigger. It's right at that black line. All right, perfect. And that just cancels that dialogue.
A little bit of walking done, so I'm not sure how much time you did save over just taking the cutscene. Probably a couple seconds, but ideally you want to get as close to the trigger as possible, because 2B does kind of walk like a bit of a slug when you are doing those partner dialogue skips.
Absolutely. Definitely a banana slug. So we're in the actual overworld of the run, which is where we're going to be spending most of our time is on this map. And basically just navigating them around that as quickly as possible, getting different objectives, and we'll see some crazy out of bounds. One thing I should note is that move that Myth just did, it's like cutting paper. And the walls are paper. Walls practically don't exist. We're just going to be going through them, around them, over them. The devs made them kind of paper thin, so it's going to be pretty easy to get around things.
Definitely just a suggestion. So we will see in this section, the City Ruins section of the game, there's not a lot of combat. One of the nice things about this run when you are learning it is there's multiple ways you can approach learning. Some people approach it just having really good, clean boss fights. Some people, like myself, approach it by learning all the out-of-bounds skips, that sort of thing.
Some people join and make their own route for A to Z.
But yeah, so there's not a lot of boss combat here, just a lot of menuing and sort of fluid movement through the city. no real out of bounds here either. You're just going to see a couple of sort of smooth movement techs over barricades. You know, stuff that you might have even done yourself in the first playthrough if you were, or in a casual playthrough if you're like pretty smooth with the movement and you were just kind of experimenting with things. These are things you might have done.
Ooh, we're doing my favorite kind of quest in a video game ever. Fetch quests!
Fetch quests? Woo! We could just replace this entire run with fetch quests.
Oh.
I wouldn't run this game. I don't like fetch quests.
Why do you think I love A to Z so much?
I still
And
have
mackerel.
I don't even want to look into an A to Z run right now.
Oh, they're delightful, I promise. Very different from what they used to be. That being said, Myth has this all mapped up. This is a very optimized route. Any percent is pretty difficult to find new things. There are new things found, but they're usually really minor time saves. It looks like Myth is not going to be going for a strat that Marble comes up with, where you attack the small stubbies first to get them all to die at the same spot. He just needs 3 items here, and now he's going back to the resistance camp, which is kind of our hub for now. Our hub will change over to Pascal's village when we get there, and I'll make sure to point that out. But for now, we're just going to go back to Anemone and talk to her for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. In the A any percent category, like you said, there is not a lot of optimizations that are found, and new ones that are typically found are not huge time save, but they'll open up a couple new things. We'll see. Hopefully, we saw Mytherium practicing one of the newer found sort of techs that you can do. So we'll see if he goes for it, but that's still about 20 minutes away.
So one fun thing is the people don't know this, but the game gives you all the materials you need to upgrade your sword there. And so what that's going to do is going to give us an attack speed up, plus a 40% damage increase. I believe it's around 40%, and is going to allow him to do this really weird movement tech, which we call a dash swing, and it is very slightly faster than just dash chaining. And it is oddly precise sometimes. As you saw, he did something that wasn't a dash heavy, and for every 15 perfect dash heavies that you get, I think it saves like a second. Oh, doesn't quite make it. Oh, he's going for backup strats. Alright, and he gets over it. Please clap, everyone. But you'll also see something interesting. His pod coming up and making those 3 lines, that means he's charging up a pod program, which a lot of you who have played this game casually might recognize the laser or any other number of pod programs, but what you might not have realized is that when you're charging up a pod program, it slows down the entire world around you. We're going to be using that a lot. I would imagine that Myth uses that a lot during combat, and it's called pod slow-mo, and it basically just slows everything down, and then you cancel and just keep doing that over and over again. You can cancel it with pod fire or a dash. Most people prefer pod fire because it's a little bit more reliable. We can do a buy section here.
So a couple interesting things to know when we buy here. A lot of things we'll pick up are buffs and health pots, but we'll see him pick up a sachet as well as animal bait and a resilience chip. Or did he grab the resilience chip? I might have missed. I think he still will grab resilience either way. Yeah, he did grab it. So resilience, when you do have it equipped, if you're above 80% health, when you get hit, you don't get staggered, which allows you to kind of keep plowing through with your damage glitch, and then you just keep yourself above the 80% health threshold. Allows for definitely a lot more fluid combat, and you can keep your damage glitch up consistently. We won't be equipping that until much later in the run, though.
6 is being nice and basically just saying you can now face roll the enemies without much thought just by spamming recoveries, but it is much faster, so we prefer that. Sorry.
So we'll see Mytherium do a clip there called the barricade city or desert barricade clip. For some reason, they put another barricade behind the other barricades, and it just so happens to be in the right spot that we can use a plunge to clip out of bounds. We will see Mytherium staying out of bounds here. You can kind of stay along the floor of the tunnel if you stay out of bounds and run along the side, and it allows you to skip a cutscene when you enter the desert there. saves about 4 seconds, so you want to make sure you really have that skip down, because if you do fall out of bounds, and it can be quite easy if you don't know what you're doing to fall out of bounds there, you end up losing all the time you would save either way, because it takes about 4 or 5 seconds for you to warp back to your position. So we'll see he did just pick up Pod C2. That does come in important for a lot of places in the run where we use it to just essentially two-hit bosses with our pod programs. You were going to say something, Shabu?
Yeah, I was going to note something interesting about triggers in this game. So when you saw that out of bounds way back when, like a minute ago now, you'll notice that triggers, there are very specific triggers that are incredibly harsh and necessary and won't really allow you to pass unless you get those triggers. And so what we do is, instead of triggering the cutscenes connected to them, a lot of the time we will get that trigger out of bounds and skip that cutscene. Myth going for something, a lot of the textures are a little bit slidey and weird, so you can plunge on them and get a weird little boost of speed into things that you feel like you shouldn't. But yeah, trigger is pretty harsh, so a lot of this run is going to be utilizing out of bounds to either get around those triggers or pick them up out of bounds to skip cutscenes and stuff like that.
Alright, we'll see Mytherium now coming up on a couple of out of bounds skips back to back, couple crazy little skips here. So normally you'd run through the desert city, kind of chasing after one of the robots, but instead we just decide to clip out into this apartment here. Which for some reason it does have all the floors and everything, which is quite nice. Mytherium's struggling a little bit with this first clip. It's a plunge sort of into the, at a little angle into the grates that are among the side there. Pops you out of bounds, and so this section is completely out of bounds now. We'll see him jump over the invisible floor here and take a plunge down to the floor right outside of Atom Pit. And then this is another thing to note with the triggers Shabu was talking about. We'll see Myth line up to hit a trigger that would normally be at the mouth to the tunnel to Atom Pit. There he goes there. And you need that one to spawn in the platform.
Oh, nice. Very nice. So normally you have to land on that platform, but Myth does a very precise angled plunge and kind of touches it with his head, and that allows the platform trigger to go, and it skips another a cutscene. So that skip actually saves a ton of time because you're skipping a lot of cutscenes, and it's super flashy and fun to watch.
It is a point of contention, though, that this has been a pretty common soft or point for newer runners to either, soft lock, or if they don't know the escape for the pit here. If you do miss that platform and you land in the pit, you do have to get up to the platform somehow to trigger it. It can be quite a little bit of work, and you'll probably lose. If you know what you're doing, you'll probably lose about 20 seconds. If you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to have to go back to your previous save, and you're going to lose about 4 minutes.
Even if you don't know what you're doing, and you know how to get out, you can lose a minute, 2 minutes just remembering how the heck to get out of there.
Yep, a lot of the sides to the Atom Pit do look... It's all pretty destroyed, so you're looking for a very specific spot in a kind of wall of just debris that all sort of looks the same.
So as I said earlier, we've got that pod slow-mo thing, and it's slowing down all the enemies. That's making it a little bit easier for Myth. It looks like he's trying to get this SD. Nope, doesn't quite get it. Normally you want to SD there, take out a few more enemies at that last moment and get a little bit more EXP, because that EXP is going to be really important since we're super underleveled.
So we go into the first pretty difficult boss fight of the game. Most bosses are usually not too much of an issue because you have that resilience chip and you can just kind of face roll. Adam here, though, has a couple of really annoying attack patterns, and with you not having the resilience chip, you do really have to watch it and try and keep up your damage as much as possible. There are a lot of phase skips you can do here by having good combat too. We'll see one coming up here. While Adam goes into this state, you can only really hit him with projectiles, so we range buff up and hit him with a double charged laser. Some people won't know, when you have both pods, you can keep holding it and get a second laser off of pod C and then just switch to pod C for a third. Myth unfortunately not getting the zero phase skip and just getting one of the phases out of the range stage.
B1ackGoldSaw, by the way, in the out of bounds. This is actually a very difficult out of bounds, despite the fact that our runners make it look so easy. So let's see how he does. All right, so he gets the first thing. I think he's going for void out. You can void out here for a little bit of safety. I think that is probably the right pick if you're not entirely confident. Myth getting some spaghetti movement today. And B1ackGoldSaw gets it, no problem. Void out working perfectly for him. That's really good.
So another thing to note here on GoldSaw's screen, he's going to be clearing out the robots like we saw Mytherium doing. You want to clear as many as quick as possible for two reasons. One, the experience that you get from killing them. Since they just keep spawning in, you just want to try and get as much XP as possible to level yourself up, get a little bit more damage.
6. 6.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Whew! We forgot about one of the most important things in the run.
What did we forget? I'm completely mind blank.
The weapon switching.
Oh my goodness, yes. Okay. So, the one thing we'll note with the damage glitching is that when you throw out a damage glitch, it was actually found that if you make your two weapon sets the same, having the small sword and the heavy slot, and you switch your weapon set while you have one damage glitch out and spinning, you can actually spin up another one. So you essentially double your damage by having the two of them out spinning while you're doing all of the other optimal combat stuff.
So someone in the chat asked me, what is spaghetti movement? Also, you just saw a very interesting skip. Because we run in loadless now, it is faster to save load, but you will trigger a dialogue there and be unable to get that save load unless you go out of bounds around that dialogue and then get inside of that little circular area where you can quick save from your menu, and then you save load and you're able to do that. It saves a bit of time, a little bit of movement. Definitely saves more time in loadless. That being said, spaghetti movement. Spaghetti movement is what we refer to, especially with top runners. They're so consistent, so great, that whenever they do these dash swings and they mess up a dash swing and they do a dash heavy instead, loses a little bit of time. If you're looking at if they're zigzagging, not taking beelines, if they're doing some weird movement stuff, they're trying to do a lift but they do a jump heavy and that isn't a lift. Instead, any of this is spaghetti movement. Basically, it's just anything
not normal. You're losing time because you're flubbing your inputs.
Exactly.
You're not being optimal anymore. The other thing I didn't get to explain about the pit, because we explained the double damage glitch, but you do have an opportunity to get crit chips from the drops from the robot too. Those can help speed up your clear time on bosses. Crits do 500% damage, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they do big damage when you're damage glitching.
I thought it might be 300% actually. I said kind of instinctually because I was thinking about what Mytherium was doing, which he did some interesting movement a little bit earlier just to get over a cutscene trigger, and now he's going to be doing something super fun.
I've never seen that before. That's neat. That's a different way to do the Let's Play skip that we normally do.
Oh boy. Okay, so he's going for a new trick that we call auto scroller coaster skip. And basically he's going to go over here, he's going to grab trigger right there, and then he's going to summon the roller coaster. This is a potential time loss if he doesn't get this quite right. He's going to summon the roller coaster, stand right here, then he's going to jump, and let's see if he gets it. Oh, he gets it! Nice. So he's going to have to go over here, grab another trigger, and this is going to allow him to either get some more XP from this tank or pick up a spear and allow us to do some interesting movement tech. We'll see which he decides to do.
So it looks like he is going to go for the tank for the extra experience. The tank does give a lot more experience than what you get from killing the robots on the roller coaster. It's definitely a good option here. Fortunately, we will not probably see any spear dashing. I think Canaris was working on a way to get both the tank and the spear, but haven't seen it pulled off in runs quite yet.
So for those of you who are confused at this point, it looks like he might actually be going for it. He's not going to be able to get it if he does that, though. He's going to want to try and get out of bounds here and get over to a spot where you can pick up a weapon, which is a spear, and spear allows you to do some interesting things, which is spear dashing. by using clever usage of SDs and other things, you can move very, very, very quickly. Unfortunately, he doesn't get it. He's going into the Beauvoir fight, though. BlackGoldSaw
favorite
setting
boss
up
of the game.
Yeah, sorry. BlackGoldSaw setting up the save scum, by the way, if you want another look at it. That's fine. I think he should be pretty good if he gets this. But as we said about combat, we're going to be seeing all of these things together. We're going to be seeing taunting, we're going to see buffing, and we're going to see double damage glitch, which we explained a little bit earlier, but it's just damage glitch, which is the dash and heavy, and then you switch weapons when your sword is spinning, and you get double spinning swords. Double spinning swords, essentially doubling our damage output.
Yeah, and we'll see. Mytherium did position Beauvoir to be close to the stage. You want to be able to damage. English is very hard for both of us today. You want to double damage glitch her down to her threshold, kind of right as she's about to finish the spinning attack, and then that way you position her close to the stage, and so she doesn't have to move as far. She doesn't have to fly back to the stage, so you save a little bit of time there. We will see him going in now to the annoying part of this boss fight, the hacking stage. Each hack, if you do get hit by it here, will lose you about 6 to 8 seconds, and it's kind of random when they put out those waves that you just see Mytherium dodge.
Oh, unfortunately gets hit by one.
Very quick clear on the hack though, so I don't think that was quite 6 seconds loss. Another one.
Alright, Myth bleeding time a little bit here with these hacks. He's gonna just freaking mow down this phase and try and get into the next one. We don't really care about cycles or anything on this one. He's just gonna mow down this phase as quickly as possible. Grab some extra EXP from these dead androids here. Also, don't want to get hacked by them, unfortunately. So, can take him out, go back to Beauvoir, and we're gonna set up something pretty interesting. He's gonna SD once he sees the level up sign.
Another thing to note here, on BlackGoldSaw's screen, it looks like he did abandon going for the save scum. I think he wasn't able to quite get the out of bounds to run towards the save spot, so he just opts to go for the trigger.
I will say,
losing some time.
It is a very difficult, invisible floor.
Oh no!
To get a hold of.
Oh no, I can't believe
Oh,
he did that.
he just say go back to resistance camp?
Yeah, so this, I was going to bring it up, but if he hit it, I wasn't going to bother. Unfortunately, when you go to leave the desert here, it gives you an option to either go back to the resistance camp, like you usually do in the story, or you continue on fighting. If you just mash, it should just hit continue fighting either way. You shouldn't have to do any directional input, but again, BlackGoldSaw accidentally hitting the top option, which means he is going to have to run back to the resistance camp unless he knows the barricade clip. It's kind of
two separate different barricade clips that you can do as a backup. But honestly, at this point, it would probably be better to just load his save, since he did save load there at the end of that save scum. It probably would have been better to just load that save and redo it, but unfortunately, you know, you're in a race. The adrenaline's running. It happens.
So why don't the machines?
Yeah, and it's one of those mistakes that you really end up kicking yourself over because it's so simple. You're like, there's no way I should screw this up, and then you end up doing it in a race just because of the pressure.
Absolutely. I hope it doesn't affect him too much mentally, because I would love to see BlackGoldSaw have a really great rest of his run. And I think he really has the potential to, honestly.
They all have white flags.
Looks like they really don't want to fight.
Yep, so when you don't
know... Did Myth just kill Pascal?
He very well might have. I wasn't paying attention. I was paying attention
to
Myth
just killed Pascal!
Definitely a spaghetti thing to do. I can't say I haven't done it before in a race myself. Unfortunately, Pascal is pretty much a one-hit kill, so if you do go to dialogue skip or something and you accidentally screw up and kill Pascal, you will have to reload your save to get him to spawn back in.
Yeah, he doesn't spawn, and he also holds quests, so you can't really do anything. So he just had to save load there, which is a little unfortunate. Actually, very unfortunate. I realized he lost his SD, so he's gonna have to SD again. That's gonna be a bit of time loss, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. And so normally what would happen in this section of the game is you grab the item from Pascal and you go bring it to an enemy in the resistance camp, and then grab one from her and bring it back to Pascal. Normally we can skip the entire run back by getting the animal that Myth is about to bait here to kill us. And that's why we do SD at Bovar, is just to make sure that it is a clean one-hit kill, saving as much time as possible. But unfortunately, Mytherium, with having to reload the save, does refill his health bar.
He's doing what I think most runners do in the races when they're frustrated. They spam SD to let everyone know they're frustrated. Unfortunately, he didn't get a boar, which he got a moose instead. And if you have a boar, you can do something called boar hopping, which is pretty interesting. We'll see if B1ackGoldSaw gets it, and I'll make sure to point it out if he does. But there's not a whole lot to say here. He's going to go pick up something from the resistance camp, and then he's going to SD, I think probably at Anemone, since he kind of spaghettied some things.
Also having a little issues with the Let's Play skip, getting the height on the initial lift. Usually, there we go. So this is how Let's Play is normally done. Oh, does he have DLC elevator?
Oh, whew! I thought he was in the elevator.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that is a soft block or not, but because I don't have the DLC.
Yeah,
so
one interesting to note about that, yeah.
Making me nervous, man. Making me a little bit nervous. Myth,
when you do get the... Sorry, you go first.
Oh, it's alright. Myth doing an SD there, so that we can set up some interesting movement tech here. He's going to try and do something very precise here. He's going to attack this moose. And, oh! I'm just kidding. It's a
That's what we wanted to happen. Yeah.
It's a death warp. So basically, when you die, you keep your items and you keep your story progress. So since he has the items that he needs to do for this quest, this little trading quest between Pascal and Anemone, all he's going to do is just going to come over here and give that thing to Pascal, and he's going to be able to continue. That's what that death warp does for us.
GoldSaw unfortunately not being able to get the Let's Play skip in a decent amount of time, so he opts just to go for the normal route, which can be quite annoying. Jumping on those, you know, amusement park ride cars can be quite annoying sometimes.
There are some backups there you can do with some fancy movement, but you know, a lot of newer runners don't know those things because they've always known this route. But there are a few little backups you can do. Myth, we're gonna see big machine boy round 2. There's gonna be 2 of them.
Yeah, and, definitely one of the most cheesy parts in the game, in my opinion, because you just get to cheese both bosses back to back. Really, just kind of encapsulates how the speed run kind of goes all together in this one little section.
Yeah. So one thing I like to point out pretty much every time I commentate, the devs just like walls. They just can't seem to get walls right. And so either walls are super short or they have random holes in them. So there's a very fun little fight here, and by fun I mean probably one of the worst fights in the video game. But we can just skip it because there's a hole in the invisible wall. So we're just going to jump through that, and if he doesn't get it right, well, fortunately for us, the wall is pretty short, and so we can just jump over it with some fancy movement tech.
It kind of can be a little bit memey here too if you do manage to get punched by angles, or you miss the bridge doing this skip. You can fall off the roof, and it doesn't quite end your run because you can still hit the angles, but when you do go to do that fight, a wall spawns behind you, so if you try and come back up the ladder, you'll be on the wrong side of that wall, and the only time you can hit angles is if he throws punches at you. Thankfully, none of this happening for Mytherium, as he does hit the first version of the Angle City clip, not having to do the backup.
Easy peasy double jump through a hole in the invisible wall because they just didn't put something there.
And we'll see another thing that he's about to do here. Engels, most of the time, will be doing this laser attack. If you buff up and you do your pod programs kind of right between his head and his shoulders, all the bullets will get sponged in just because he has really big hitboxes, allowing you to just two-hit the angle and keep going.
Yeah, Engels, that second Engels Achilles heel is more like an Achilles thigh. You just unload it all into his thigh, and then he's dead. He's down. Down for the count.
Alright, so we will see Mytherium now going to the negotiation section of the game, and this is a part in the run that most people normally trigger a glitch called Skype glitch. A little thing about it is you pretty much every time you get one of these voiceover commands, you get this little ringtone. By getting a Skype glitch, you just remove that ringtone and allows you to go through and just cuts time on your dialogue segments very quick. It is a thing, though, that doesn't go away unless you reset the game. So we've had sometimes runners will go and they'll have Skype glitch from a run, they'll reset and they'll go into the intro section of the game, and you'll come out like 15 seconds ahead of your splits just because you're cutting so much dialogue there. Unfortunately, that is one of the things that is banned in this run, since it is a setup before the run.
So speaking of timed dialogue sections, we're coming into a fun timed dialogue section, but with a twist. So instead of just waiting around, we're gonna kill Eve, this nice looking boy over here. We're gonna murder him real quick, but don't worry, he'll come back. And that's going to allow Myth over here to get some EXP, probably level up, and then he's going to do some really interesting movement to do a very high jump. Remember when I said that walls are not the developer's strong suits? Yeah, this invisible wall, it's taller, but not quite tall enough for us. So we're just going to jump right over that. I think he'll probably go for the alloy chest and clearing out enemies in the tunnels, which will allow him to go through the tunnels much quicker. And honestly, it just looks cool. So we get that kill. He does level up, I was right. And he should, if he gets a nice attack here, he will counter it. So he wants a perfect counter here, and then he's going to do a lift off of that very, very fancy high jump and gets right over that invisible wall. And now he's going to do some off-screen high jumps to get up and over onto that bridge. If you look at the mini-map, you can see that. Gets over another little invisible wall perfectly. Myth has no problem with this. He's got literally, he does this in his sleep. This is breakfast for him. And
Yeah,
he's gonna...
It can be very annoying because of the camera orientations, but again, Myth just having that muscle memory down, it is breakfast for him. It's just another part of the run.
Sorry, he doesn't actually grab the materials. It looks like he's not going to go for Virtuous Contract level 3. Virtuous Contract being the small sword that we use for damage glitch, and moving quickly with the dash heavies, is going to opt to not try his luck at VC3, but instead just going to clear all the enemies. That's all I had to say. You go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you were going to explain what I was going to explain, but I'll make it a little note about Virtuous Contract 3. With having the little bit of speed up on your movement that Virtuous Contract brings, as well as the damage up.
55%.
One little thing that does end up changing is a lot of the skips towards the end of the game. They become a lot more precise. They have different lineups with Virtuous Contract 3 rather than 2. One particular skip can be quite a time loss if you don't get it first try. See time loss there on Virtuous Contract 3 runs a lot this race, but I don't think we'll have to worry about it because Myth isn't going for it, and I don't think Black will either.
Yeah, I would imagine not. So, gonna just teleport back to the bunker. We're gonna see another little dialogue skip here. We actually just saw one by going on that ladder, but that one's a little bit harder to explain. This one's a little bit easier to see. We're just gonna match through some dialogue, then do the the similar thing that we saw earlier to pulling up the 9S dial or 9S menu, the little AI menu, and then he's just going to use that to cancel some dialogue and move on his way.
And GoldSaw going towards the city angles, or not yet. He still has to grab the resistance camp item. He is going to do some boar hopping here, it looks like.
Okay, so I'm gonna note two things very quickly. Sorry, Six. I'm just gonna
Yeah, no, go.
bulldozer real quick. Myth missed the dialogue skip and then SD'd out of frustration, I would imagine. But he did miss the dialogue skip. One thing about boar hopping, though, is it is slightly faster because you accelerate when you jump, and the boar, because he's, how do I say this nicely, larger, fatter, and has a heavier gravitational pull for some reason, just lands way faster than the moose, and then that jump acceleration you can actually utilize just by constantly jumping. It's slightly faster.
All right, we will see Mytherium now. He's back at Pascal's village, and normally at this point in the game, this is where we will do our buys. He'll buy large attack and defense. Well, we'll see if he buys defense ups at all. It's sort of not required, but it makes the run a lot safer later on when the bosses will two-hit you. If you're running defense buffs, they'll two shots will take you down to about 5% HP.
Oh, that's right. Myth sold critical up chips because he's gonna do something pretty interesting.
So he is still opting for it, so we are still going to see a little bit of swag here. And we'll see Myth lining up for another skip here called Mom Skip. There's this little cutscene dialogue right here at the mouth of Pascal's village. Doing the skip saves about 4 seconds if you get it pretty cleanly. But just going over the dialogue trigger there altogether, and on his way over to the commercial complex.
I honestly, I'm gonna check the restream real quick and see
We don't get to choose our assignments.
if he did buy. Okay, he actually did buy defense buffs. I'm really surprised that Myth bought defense buffs. Since he is a very hard runner, he's used to getting one shot. But I guess because he's going for that special sauce of his that he's going to be getting pretty soon here. I guess he's thinking I might need the defense buffs. Alright, that's a dialogue cancel, by the way. Just pulling up that dialogue, canceling another one. Saves a bit of time, and he's going to go into this just clean fighting. Wants to take him out as quickly as possible.
Who the heck is the Forest King?
You're getting distracted.
Check this guy. He's just
Yeah, Tech, if you have an inkling as to what he's doing, he said the number 6. So it might be slightly different from what you're thinking. But needless to say, I'm excited.
Looks like the forest is just ahead.
6?
Yes.
So I was making sure you were still there. It's
Yeah,
been
no.
a little bit of radio silence. I figured you might want to talk a little bit about Forest.
Sure. I actually love this section of the game. It's a bunch of fluid movement, and when you're learning the run, you're used to doing the entire castle section, but being that this is a speed run, we do have a way to completely skip that section of the game. Wish I could say the same for other long sections of the game that we could skip, but
we'll get to that. We need
I'm
we
being
need
a little
as much to
optimistic.
talk about.
for sure. Yep. So here, just a lot of smooth movement. Myth probably going to have pretty optimized movement going through this section. You want to try and get out as many dash swings as possible, but with the terrain being, very lumpy, you'll get in the air, and if you try and do a dash swing, you'll see Mytherium kind of with a little pasta movement there, not actually getting the dash swings, instead getting just heavy aerials, which are kind of like a plunge. And unfortunately missing the bridge on the plunge there too. We will see him skip another section of the game here by going up along this cliffside. Again, more pasta movement. Chef Mytherium's cooking it up for us today.
He's cooking it up. B1ackGoldSaw, by the way, doing the backup. Ooh, that was close. He almost just got punched off the bridge. That was a little monk-esque, but showing us perfectly what the backup strat for that is now. It used to be the main strat, but Myth going
God,
into.
He's so close. Okay, no, sorry.
Are you behind me?
I know. I for some reason I looked at the normal stream, not the commentary stream.
Okay,
so that was my delayed reaction to that of him almost getting punched off.
That's alright. Myth just did some fancy movement. That is the longest horizontal jump. We saw the highest vertical jump, and that is the longest horizontal jump in the game. And that just skips a whole lot of movement around and a different skip entirely. We call it Rainbow Road. He's also out of bounds. This looks odd.
Castle skips here. He does go out of bounds off of that tree trunk, doing a pod launch. instead of going to the castle, we just go out of bounds and we use the window sills to just sort of lift our way up to the top floor of the castle where A2 is located. And there's this nice convenient little staircase placed here. I want to say for aesthetics, because it's normally just supposed to be in the backdrop, but thankfully it does have hit collision and we can use that to get ourselves up into this top room here.
Yeah, the devs in collision, man. They put collision on things that didn't need collision, and they missed collision on things that should have had collision. It's just the darndest thing.
So
But you know what? It makes the run very fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's one of the things I love about running this game is just all the movement options you have and the out-of-bounds clips. So we will be coming up on the A2 fight here for Mytherium. It can be a little bit of a tougher fight for newer runners and experienced runners nonetheless, because A2, she runs away on you, she throws out a lot of hitboxes, but if you can keep yourself topped up on HP, keep those resilience chips up, you won't be getting staggered too often. Mytherium kind of having a past A2 fight here so far.
He's treating it a lot like very hard from what I see. He's giving her a lot of space, and very hard again. You get one shot, and so it's because he doesn't have resilience. He can get kind of sunlocked there and be in a little bit of trouble.
I'm wondering if he's saving his equip time, because he definitely did buy the resilience chip, but I think he's probably because of special sauce, as you were talking about, he might be saving his equip time until a little bit later in the run. Unfortunately, it will make A2 a lot harder of a fight without that resilience chip.
Yeah, so he's going to be playing this very safe and honestly a little bit spaghettily. He does finally get her down enough to trigger that cutscene. Also, there's a really long dialogue if you follow A2, which you're supposed to. Yeah, we don't like that. We're just going to high jump over this and get over there.
Yeah, normally there's a trigger, which you kind of saw get triggered there, but it just pushes you back in the direction where you came from, away from the trigger. But if we high jump over it, we can get on the other side and just cancel and run back to where we came from and just straight teleport to Pascal's village, skipping about 40 seconds in dialogue, and yeah, nice skip.
Yeah, very interesting one there. So, coming up on everyone's favorite part. Actually, is he going? I think he's about to do something probably fairly interesting here.
Yeah, again, as chat's talking about Myth having a pretty spaghetti run so far, Chef Mytherium cooking up a feast for all of us.
Yep, he's definitely going for it. Okay, guys, now we can finally talk about that.
Yeah, you want to explain the sauce, because I don't know it as well.
That special sauce. Okay. So basically, I'm gonna stop that bit for a little bit. But Mytherium's gonna pick up something called a taunt plus X chip, and he said 6. So I'm gonna guess that he's gonna get taunt plus 6, which is going to increase the damage that he takes from taunted enemies, but greatly increase the damage that he deals to taunted enemies. And so this is going to be really interesting. He unfortunately... Oh, he's not getting the dialogue. Oh, he does have the dialogue. You will lose a little bit of time if you get that dialogue, so he's... Oh, no, that's the resistance camp dialogue. That's my bad. So he is going to get this, and this means he's probably going to be at a one-shot for almost the entire run from here on out. Anytime he taunts an enemy, he's pretty much one-shot. This is going to be incredibly Monka-esque at all times, and but he's gonna melt enemies that are taunted because he's just going to do a crazy amount of damage output. This should be pretty fun to see. That being said, he did get it first try, by the way. No problems getting the plus 6. There is a little bit of stuff there. You can trigger dialogue and have to wait around for a long time. There's a few weird shop things. I had faith in Mytherium that whole time. We're about to see another skip.
Yeah, this is definitely... I definitely like... I don't know what Mytherium's quite doing. He's checking out that mini-map. Not a lot of detail on that there. Actually not too sure what he's doing with the loads.
Oh, he didn't get it. He triggered a meal first. So
Okay, that makes sense.
So he is going for taunt +6, which means that he's going to be counting up a meal RNG. He's going to be waiting for a meal. Come on. Because he's going for +6, he's waiting for a certain shop from meal, and he wants him to come by the resistance camp. It doesn't. I don't think that's quite.
Yeah, you're definitely seeing some pretty non-standard stuff in the run here. Normally, this is not something that we go for, as it does take a lot of time to get this +6 chip, but
Right.
Myth is showcasing this run.
So this is a very, very unorthodox thing to do. We do this a lot in longer runs, particularly A to Z and 98%, I believe, does something like this. So this is going to be interesting. Let's get a counter up. That's one try.
As well, we got a question in chat asking about FAR. With FAR, what is the most recent stable version?
0.1.
A lot of the
0.14.
runners use 0.1 or 0.14, yeah, because a lot of us have issues on the most recent versions. In certain sections of the game, we get a lot of frame drops. There was a lot of useful features added into FAR in the newer versions, but in terms of run stability, you're probably just going to want to go with 0.1 or 0.14.
Okay, so that was 2 tries. We are we're looking at try number 3 here. Let's see if he gets it. See if he gets the right shop. He's looking for a very specific shop. Also, GoldSaw getting resilience. Let's see what other chips he gets real quick. That doesn't look like he equipped anything else. That seems unfortunate. Maybe got bad luck. All right, so that's try number 3.
Unfortunate.
Oh,
As you can see, this is why we don't include it in A ending, just because of the amount of RNG to get the +6 chip. We'll end up losing you a lot of time. There's a couple other things that we've talked about adding into a run, like Pod B is in the same boat where it's like, okay, do you want to add RNG into the run for minimal gain?
Yeah, a lot of the problem is the fact that there's RNG. Also, the fact that getting to doing these things, it's hard to time how much of a difference in damage they make. So, you know, you have to time everything involved in getting them. So that was try number 4, I believe, right?
I think so, yeah. Try
B1ackGoldSaw did not get any offensive chips, by the way, so that's really unfortunate.
We're gonna see. We're gonna see how bad this RNG gets, and if Myth decides he really wants to stick it to this strategy.
And this gives GoldSaw a chance to catch up here. I mean, you know, this is a lot of time, and it's definitely making the race a bit more interesting. So that was try number 5, I believe, and this is number 6.
Yep, and the one thing I would like to note here too is I can see Mytherium sticking this through until he gets taunt 6, regardless of the RNG he gets, because in the spot he's in right now in his pool, I don't think this match matters. I think he is into the doubles, or he's into the double elimination bracket.
Yeah, he is already.
Whether he goes 3-0 or 2-1, he should still make it either way. So.
All right, that was 7. Yeah, he has already made it through, even without this, since if he lost to GoldSaw, that would only be 1 victory for GoldSaw, and then that would be 2 for Myth. 2 other people would have to get 2 victories. So
yeah, Tech already has the 2-1 in his group. There's he's leading the group right now at 2-0.
8. Tech
at 2-1. Litz at 1-2. So yeah, he's sitting pretty comfortable here.
Yeah. So that was his 8th try. We're going on number 9, guys. This RNG is pretty gnarly. We don't use it in the run for good reason. Oh no. That was number 9, I believe. So we're going on number 10, and then B1ackGoldSaw coming up on all the forest skips. If you loved watching the forest skips, well, guess what? You probably get to watch them again, which is always very, very fun.
See how GoldSaw's movement compares here. Not looking very smooth so far, but again, like a lot of chat has been pointing out, GoldSaw has been having issues with getting his game to work recently, performance issues. I can definitely relate to that, and so he hasn't been able to practice the run much in preparation for this tournament.
Oh no. I see Mytherium already in chat, so this looks like number 11 already. Oh.
Oh my goodness.
No. Again, he's looking for a very specific set. Very specific shot.
Well, again, it will be there's a good thing and a bad thing that comes out of this, because and actually GoldSaw going for
Rainbow Road.
Rainbow Road. This is pretty poggers if he does pull this off.
It looks like
and he does get
he was so close. Oh, that was very impressive, honestly. To me, I don't even go for that.
Yeah, no, I don't go for it either. So I was
very impressive. I'm very impressed, at least. So that's, I think this is 12. This is try number 12 for Myth. Okay, it looks like he gets it. Wow.
Nice. Second
Let's
try
go, Black
Rainbow Road.
GoldSaw.
That's a
Let's go.
very depends who you're talking to if they'll classify that skip as difficult or not. Either way, it's a ton of inputs, and quad pod spins can be very uncomfortable for some runners. I know that's one of the reasons I avoid that skip.
Oh, okay, so I think we're on try number 12 or 13. I've kind of lost track. I was hoping that someone in chat would keep count, but let's see. It looks like in my okay, finally gets the right shot, and he's gonna be able to buy taunt +6. Oh,
stop playing a dangerous game here with the top floor. It looks like he gets out of it fine, but one thing that can happen that's sort of unfortunate there is if you manage to go a little bit too far forward, you will fall back into the castle and have to run through still probably like one of the probably about a third of the castle. You have to go all the way over to another building, get up to the top floor.
Yeah,
it can be a good time loss if you do manage to fall into third floor.
Yeah,
all right, we're gonna see it through here.
But
now
one thing I will say, chat saying something that I've thought a lot. GoldSaw, when he gets some more runs under his belt, he gets some practice, he's gonna be scary. When he hits stuff like that, like, I mean, he's going to be a scary person to run against. He's going to improve very quickly. I feel like he's going to have a very breakout time one of these runs.
Yeah, I'm scared. He's definitely gonna bop me as soon as he gets his tech issues figured out. I've been wanting to cut down my time, but with the thumb injury, I haven't been able to run for the past week. Unfortunately, right in the middle of the tournament too.
Yeah.
But so it's be scary. He's gonna come through and bop a lot of people.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you there.
Yeah, no.
Myth just going out of bounds, grabbing a couple triggers that are necessary. As you can see, he's doing some interesting like plunges and stuff, avoiding. There was a little door there. If you land inside that door, it is a what I would call a soft lock. You can get out, but it's basically a run killer. You're gonna see him melt through these enemies with that taunt +6 though. But that being said, every enemy is terrifying now. Every enemy is gonna deal massive amounts of damage. Possibly one-shot you. That +6 is a big deal. Just gonna clean up this short fight real quick, and then he's gonna do another little skip. Because we skipped all of this schnozzle, all this extra stuff, you're gonna activate a dialogue and overwrite this other dialogue. It's just gonna end that dialogue. And how many more times can I say dialogue? Because that just lets us into the most exciting part of the run.
Well, Black GoldSaw hitting the dialogue skip on A2. Pretty good second try. We will be going on to the Gurun section on Mytherium's screen. This is that unskippable part of the game that we all wish we could skip. It's a shoot 'em up that takes about 15 minutes to go through the entire thing.
And I will say there are parts that are not auto-scroller, but almost the entire thing is an auto-scroller. This part is not. He actually needs to get rid of these waves as quickly as possible. And then there are 4 mini-bosses as well that are not auto-scrollers, but the rest of it, unfortunately, is.
Again, though, this race has evened up quite a bit with Mytherium taking a bunch of time out for that Emil RNG. GoldSaw just one skip away, or yeah, one skip away sort of once he goes to resistance from being in the same section as Mytherium.
Yeah. absolutely. A much closer race now. This opens up some possibilities for GoldSaw, especially if Mytherium takes some deaths from top +6, which is definitely a possibility. It's a scary item to have. I will say, do you mind if I say something, Six?
Go for it.
2,000. May seem like a random number, may sound a little bit weird, but $2,000. 2,000 US dollars, not fake money, not monopoly money, not Zimbabwe dollars, real US dollars, $2,000 if someone can find a speedrun viable any % skip for Groon.
Yep.
$2,000 in your pocket.
Everybody's chipping in a little bit of money. Pot's up to 2K now. If you can find the skip for this section of the game, a usable skip, people will gladly pay you for it. I don't think anybody is holding on to their hard-earned dollars for this skip. Especially a lot of the top runners. You know, it's a very fun section of the game, your first casual playthrough, but
and a curry pizza.
Oh, and the curry pizza. We cannot forget about Tech Theist. He will cook you a pizza and send it to you.
And from what I understand, it sounds pretty tasty. In fact, I'm pretty hungry now. I could go for some curry pizza right now. Maybe I'll find Groon skip.
Tech Theist, the relative pizza connoisseur in our little community we've got going. He's definitely the man you want to get the pizza from.
Oh, GoldSaw. Oh, I thought he was close to the elevator. That elevator is a soft block, as I said. But he's just going to do this short fight and then get into the Groon section as well. A lot closer race now than it has been. And that's honestly awesome. We're going to see a little bit of difference in combat routing for these runners because you've got the taunt, and then you've got all the buffs and everything. So we're going to see a pretty steep difference in combat.
And as I was going to say earlier, as we were going into the forest section, I said there was a good thing and a bad thing about Mytherium's Emil RNG, who unfortunately B1ackGoldSaw plunging out of bounds there into the drown zone. But the good thing is that the race is now really close. The bad thing, both of these players are going to overlap on Groon, and we're going to have nothing to talk about for a solid 15 minutes.
Don't worry, guys. I always try to not have dead space during Groon. I try to think of at least something to talk about, so we will try to avoid that as much as possible.
If worst comes to worst, we'll just start arguing left pipe and right pipe again.
I mean, we don't have any arguments because we're civil.
You're right.
And, you know,
you can be civil.
We're normal human beings, honestly. I think that a lot of the right pipers, there's something a little bit wrong, and not in like a quirky, good, weird way. I think there's.
Anyways, we'll get out of that discussion. See if there's anything to talk about. Again, open to chat if anybody has any questions about the run. Something you want a little more explaining on, we're more than happy to. Especially in this this vacuous period of the game.
Now would definitely be the time to ask any questions that you have. That being said, we are going to come up on a couple things. So first of all, you saw Myth take out a Goliath flyer using pod programs. So pod programs in the flight, we do have 2 pods. So we do have 2 pod programs, and we're going to see use of that a little bit. I will say, despite the crap that we give Groon, you do have to pay attention the entire time, because there are difficult parts to it. Particularly, there are 3 cores that you have to take out. You have to take out 2 little balls, then you have to take out 2 tiny little balls, then you got to take out 1 big ball in the middle. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a second, but the timing is very precise. These runners know it. I would imagine that they both have it kind of ingrained in their brain. 5 slashes, back up, keep shooting the small orbs, and then pod program the large orbs until they're dead. We could see some spaghetti because that does tend to happen at this section.
Now, Mytherium going on the bathroom break strat, he actually hit a thing to have all the enemies despawned here, so he actually doesn't have any combat sections. So, fortunately, he gets to rest his hands. Unfortunately, he misses out on a lot of EXP in this section. Usually, you get about 2 or maybe 3 levels from Groon. I want to say like 2.5 is comfortable.
Yeah, I think that he's not too worried about it because of the top +6 damage. Most of the leveling up has to do with dealing damage, and I think with that top +6, he's just not particularly worried about it. with a perfect core. Oh, near perfect. Not quite perfect. Had a little bit of trouble on that last ball, but
Yeah, an interesting thing about these cores too, for some reason they made it so that the first core that you fight does take two two buff pod programs to kill, whereas the ones following only take one for some reason. Don't know how that makes too much sense. Usually you'd think like as you're ramping up the fight they get harder, but as we do the later cores, you only do need one pod program to kill them.
So fun fact, in this section you can just kind of keep going forward and go inside of Brune. BlackGoldSaw coming up on this Goliath flyer, which will he doesn't have defense buffs. What a man! BlackGoldSaw is a man! Oh,
The absolute
what a legend. What a legend.
Trying to cut all the time possible. He doesn't have time for menus.
Who has time for menus? Not BlackGoldSaw.
See this man pull out Rainbow Road Skip second try, and like, how can you go back to defensive buffs after that? You just had that caliber of run.
So one thing I will say that a lot of people don't optimize this particular section, but you can optimize this section with very carefully timing your railgun shots. And
the aim can be pretty annoying here sometimes too, but
so you can hit his big teeth, but we're just gonna shoot big 3 loads into Brune's mouth, and then that's gonna be that for that part. And then guess what? We're back into an auto scroller.
My favorite type of section of the game. This and fetch quests. If this and fetch quests could just be the game, man.
$2,000 in your pocket. Yes, tech theist. You know what? Whatever, man. Whatever. 2,000 crisp dollars in your pocket at a relatively quick pace. If you can find a usable, viable strat for skipping Brune in any percent. You know how, God, my enjoyment of this run would go up. Like
Oh, so much
million.
more if we could just get rid of this entire section.
But yeah, this section is a little bit more bearable if you have Pod B, which if you've played the game and gotten Pod B, you fish for it at the Flooded City. And it's this long lasery fingeroonies, but it deals damage to multiple enemies at once. Or it can deal damage to multiple enemies at once. It makes it a little bit more fun to just spin around and be an idiot, to be honest. But yeah, honestly, it's just taking out these enemies as quickly as possible just for EXP purposes. Honestly, nothing really else, because this, again, most of it is an auto-scroller aside from very few sections, which we're coming up on Core 2. We'll see if he has a cleaner core than the first one, or if he has about the same level of core-age as the first one, where he kind of messed up the end. I hope that he gets this one perfectly clean. That would be really nice to see.
Yeah, chat talking a lot about defense buffs, and since we're not really talking about much else, defense buffs again, they do take a little bit of menuing time, so I think, as I've heard it said before, you know, anytime you take defense buffs, it is time loss with the extra menuing to buy them and actually use them. But it does make your combat a lot safer, especially towards the end of the game. In the Eve fight at the end of the game, Eve, when taunted, will two-shot you. And if you get yourself caught in one of the bad one of the projectile patterns and you miss position, you're going to take a lot of hits back to back, and making sure you actually have those pots keep you full health as you're taking all these shots back to back can be very scary. So having the defense buffs definitely gives you a lot more confidence going into that last fight.
And I will say, defense buffs aren't just a new runner thing. Like, people are like, I don't defense buff because I'm cool, but no, like, defense buffs also offer a certain level of time saved, because you don't have to worry about resilience most of the time, as well as because when you have resilience, it's over 80%, so when you take less damage, you're less likely to go under that resilience threshold.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to bring up as well, with running into defensive buffs, you're going to play a lot more confident, and so you do get a little bit of, if you're maybe not as confident, if you're not fully confident in no buffs, having those defensive buffs, you don't have to play safe or anything like that. You can just really straight mash and just go through all the fights super quickly.
Yeah, and I was going to say, on the topic of people saying, I don't use defense buffs because I'm cool. Number 2 player in the world uses defense buffs. And he just said, because it's consistent. And you know what? Some people like consistency, someone like that risk. But, you know what? If the number 2 player in the world, he's a fast boy. Marble Soda, really great runner. He uses defense buffs. Come on, guys. There's no reason to bash defense buffs. Fullest saying consistently slow. Just like him.
Ooh.
It's interesting that Fullest talking about himself, kind of out of context there. So we are finally out of Groon. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, so in this section of the game, you're just kind of running back towards the pipe that you'd normally come into Flooded City from. You'll see the runners hitting a couple of drown zones here, thinking they're in a different section of the level than they actually are, because they're doing these sort of pseudo long jumps to get to these areas and then plunging into them. So the teleport will save a little bit of time here. You'll see now he's in front of the pipe, 2 of those drown zones there, and we are coming up on one of the more difficult skips. Mytherium opting for the safety save here. Can't blame him with the taunt 6 chip. It is quite a scary
Do you mind if I
premise. Yeah, go for it.
Do you mind if I throw something out there real quick? Groon, the only thing I like about Groon is that he's kind of the gatekeeper to all of the really difficult, fun, crazy, wacky skips that we'll be seeing. This is jam-packed. We've got tons of skips, and then we've got a boss rush. This last part is going to be crazy. And speaking of skips, we are coming up on probably the most precise angle in any percent for a skip. Not terribly difficult, it's just a heavy hold, but the angle is incredibly, incredibly precise.
Yep, a lot of options for the lineup here too. Some runners will opt to use the keyboard mouse method.
Third try.
Because when you use keyboard mouse, you're going true north technically, so it makes it so that you are very precise on your setup. You don't have to worry about your left stick input angle. But yeah, and again, when runners do opt to upgrade their sword to VC3, that skip does become very precise. The lineup changes, so it's one of those make or
Shout out
breaks.
to Blue Metal. That pod launch out of the elevator. A shout out to one of our runners, Blue Metal.
And we will see Mytherium now coming up on the Adam 2 fight. He will be performing another skip here that we like to call, well, I'll let the name sink in after I explain it. This first stage of Adam that you have to deal with, he has 3 separate dialogue sections, and the last one being very long at about 40 seconds. So ideally, we clip out of bounds here, as you'll see Mytherium doing now, and we run back towards the elevator that we came into to do a dialogue skip on the 3rd dialogue. We call this skip mansplaining because nobody wants to hear Adam mansplaining for 40 seconds.
Alright, nice. I don't think he's losing time quite yet.
Yeah, you do get a couple of chances where you don't lose time on mansplaining to get the clip, just because you're waiting for the 2 other dialogues to play out altogether anyways.
Oh no, he is going to lose a little bit of time.
Yeah.
You want to walk into the elevator right when he says only then.
And surprisingly enough, like it's
right
not a
there.
super hard thing to screw up here. You're going to see him punch into the elevator and dash back out. That'll trigger the elevator dialogue and close the doors. We have seen a couple runners, though, with the doors closed behind them, and that is a very yikes situation, as depending on the timing you do it at, will either truly soft lock your game or set you back a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah, and when we say true soft lock, we mean restart your game soft lock. Like,
Yeah,
not you can't save load. You are constantly falling. All right, so we're coming into this fight, and as we've said, we haven't seen it much in Groon because you can't taunt in the fight sequence. But now that he can taunt,
Look at that damage! One damage glitch doing all of that damage to Adam there.
Yeah, but imagine all the damage Adam can do to him.
Oh my god, it's I do not blame him for running the defense buffs, because this is essentially Mytherium now playing on very hard again, where he's within a one-shot. I don't know the numbers on it because I haven't played around with Taunt 6 myself, but I'm not too sure if Adam will one-shot through the defensive buff or not. I don't think he can, but
I think Eve will. But
Eve will do a lot of damage.
yeah, and he's gonna have to deal with some interesting enemies, possibly with Soshi and the explodey bots. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. If Myth takes a death, that'll definitely be a good chance for B1ackGoldSaw to catch up, because they're not terribly far apart. B1ackGoldSaw still does need to get through the rest of Rune, and then getting a little bit unfortunate on the cores there, but looks like Myth going for the my brain doesn't work.
Mytherium getting a pretty good commander dialogue skip there. Normally you would have to wait around in the resistance camp while they explain a couple things, but by talking to the computer girl over in the corner, we see him do a dialogue skip similar to the partner dialogue skips we've been talking about already in this run. And he cancels that dialogue, which allows him to buy some skill salves for the later fights, as well as just pretty quickly get to the email that triggers the next quest, which he's on his way to now. There is a lot of dialogue in between here and when you do accept the email, so usually you want to grab it at the resistance camp and then run over, and it'll be spawned in by the time you get there. However, if you do miss that dialogue skip, you will have to start running over. You don't get to grab your skill salves, and then you lose a bit of time on the spawn in because you're grabbing the quest at a different point, and you will make it to the spot where Pascal spawns in before he actually does.
Does. Oh, before he does. Sorry.
Yeah.
The thought wasn't quite finished. So I would imagine that we're going to see another little strat here. Also, just crazy. Oh, a little bit of swag from Mytherium, just getting right over there. We are going to probably see the pantsu strat here, where you try to sneak a peek at what I will always say 2B's upper thighs. And she tries to shake away the camera, but because we have a certain setting on, it doesn't actually move the camera, and it's slightly faster than the slow sludge walk that you're trapped into. Now we're coming into one of the most skip-heavy sections in the game. Factory is broken. Also, good job, B1ackGoldSaw, getting the Coffee City clip. Very difficult, precise angle there. But we should probably start explaining. Oh boy!
Ooh, that was close.
Yeah, a little bit of antsy there, a little bit of ego, a little bit of ego.
Mytherium's still coming out a bit with a bit of the pasta here. We will see him running through here. And another interesting thing to note is Mytherium's, I think his last safety save was the pipe before Adam. So it is going to be, unless he did get a quick save off, I wasn't paying attention at resistance camp when he picked up the email. So a death here could be pretty costly.
Absolutely, and it is easy to die in Factory, let me tell you that. He's going to be coming up on a few skips, so we're going into what we call Mook's room. And the Mooks are all of these, you see that little priest who he's following? A bunch of those guys attack you, and you have to kill a certain amount before an elevator spawns. But I would imagine that Myth is probably going to skip that by doing a quick out of bounds and despawning them.
I don't think he's really caring about the experience he would get normally by grinding out the entire room, as he is running with a +6 chip. He is level 16, so coming out towards the end of the game, he should probably be about should be level 19, no problem.
So this,
I don't think he needs this.
I'll explain the first bit if you want to explain the second bit.
For sure.
Since there's a lot to unpack here, we're going to see a lot of stuff very quickly. As I've said before, this game's pretty harsh with its triggers. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out of bounds, pick up some triggers, go back, inbounds, out of bounds, all sorts of stuff. Basically what's going to happen, he's going to go out of bounds here, despawn these enemies. That's step number one. Next, he's going to get in an elevator, which we'll see in a second. Alright, gets out, no problem. Enemies, poof, gonzo. Elevator's open. So he's going to go into this elevator. Right. Alright, stay with me, guys. This is the difficult part to understand. He's going in the elevator. That's it. No, but actually he's going to go down here and he's going to talk to 9S, which is possessed a robot body. Just kind of taking it for his own. Which I had never realized how creepy that kind of is. And then he's going to clip out here to respawn that elevator, because you can't go back in that elevator unless you kind of respawn it, and so he's going to do that by doing a quick clip out here. No problem for
very speedy. Doing version 3 of that clip.
Mm-hmm. And now he's going to do some other stuff, right?
Yep, definitely. We're going to see the second part. So normally this would be sort of counterintuitive if you're not running the game. You wouldn't want to get back in the elevator and go to the Mook's room because it doesn't really go anywhere. But we will see Mytherium going to line up for another skip coming up here. He will go to this pipe and plunge out of bounds. And we'll see him do a series of clips here. So you clip out of bounds on this pipe, double jump out, and do a plunge. And we're trying to hit a trigger here. You will SD to cancel the belly flop, sort of falling. Yep, and then you glide down towards the door where the trigger is. Without touching the ground, it's just the right amount of time that you will get teleported back up to where you came after hitting the trigger. And we'll see him do a double plunge now, and he's at the end of factory. Simple as that. You miss all the crushers, all the running through that you would normally do. Very clean, deep factory skips from Mytherium. We'll see if he does opt for the safety save here before Soshi. Doesn't look like he's going to go for it.
He's going to.
Just taking the experience and going with it.
Straight in. So he's going to do another little interesting thing here. So Soshi coming up, or what I like to call the ball fight, because for probably 8 months of running this game, I didn't actually know which names were which. I knew there was Bokushi, Koshi, Roshi, and Soshi, but I just called them the ball fights. So he's just going to do a little high jump here, not dissimilar to the bridge skip that we saw oh so long ago, and I will bring up something else from Prologue in a second, and this is just going to allow him to chill here and avoid fighting Soshi during this section, because Soshi is invincible, so we're just waiting out a timer here.
Yep, you just get to hang and sort of infinifall here. If you're gliding, you'll just permanently be gliding. That way you don't get reset back to the floor. Just wait out the timer here completely. And you were going to explain another thing about this fight?
Oh, I was going, in a second I'm going to bring up something that I like to bring up after this fight. I would imagine that Myth goes for secondary deep factory skip. I hate calling it Shabu skip, it sounds weird. I have found other things.
Well, we will talk about, I'll talk about this fight then. Normally when you play it through casually, you want to try and take out one of Soshi's legs so it drops him down and he can't attack, you can get your damage off. In this run, in the sake of time, we usually just want to straight up attack Soshi from behind or in front, avoiding taking out the legs. That damage coming up from the taunt 6 chip, absolutely insane.
Melted!
That was such a fast Soshi. Normally you'd have to wait a little bit longer there, but just completely melts Soshi. Thankfully not picking up one of the legs, as that would cause Soshi to fall down, and then you have to wait for him to pick himself back up again before you can continue through. I'll let you explain Shabu's skip, since Mytherium is now coming up on that.
I don't know if he's actually going to go for it. He might just go for dash swings. But what I want to bring up is when we do something that is... Oh, he is going for Shabu skip. This is pretty difficult. You have to do a pod launch at a very specific angle. He's going to look at his minimap, get it, and he goes straight through, and he's going to jump a little bit out of bounds. It's kind of hairy. There's a lot of holes, and then he's going to go over here, do some fancy horizontal movement, and just skip this entire section just by doing that.
There you go. Pretty clean
Super
execution. Cool. We'll see him doing the same sort of skips that we saw in opening Prologue, where he's just going to out of bounds here.
That's actually one thing I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Those skips are the last real skips in the game, like the last clips.
Yeah.
And they are also the ones that you use in Prologue. So the run comes full circle. How cool is that? It's so cool that one of your first skips is also your last skip that you do. I think that's so neat. It just comes full circle, and now we're in a boss rush.
See him doing a little bit of fancy movement here. I always love that. Just glide around the corner and do a plunge down through.
I'm heading back to the
Again, just a little bit of optimized movement you'll see from top runners. as once you get most of the major skips down, it's all about optimizing your B lines and just the small little movements you do to cut your time down even more. We will see Mytherium going into the final boss rush section of the game. I think GoldSaw is coming up on Mook's room. There's so much to unpack that I've just been following Mytherium. Yeah, he's
like
coming up on
Mook's room. I would have liked to see Mytherium go for some Archelac swag, but you know, I've kind of given up on Mytherium going for all the swag. It's okay. It's okay, Myth. It's okay to be kind of cool, kind of lame. It's like half hot, half cold. But
I imagine BlackGoldSaw 2, seeing that he did do the Rainbow Road clip, he is probably going to go for Deep Factory as well. We'll see how good his execution is on that. Mytherium just going to be running through here. Normally you have to clear out the back of the resistance camp and like a small pseudo-boss sort of unit. With his taunt 6 chip, he should just rip right through this section. See, BlackGoldSaw is going to clip out of Mook's room. Not get the experience, but he is going to take that 8-second time save.
I will say, guys, keep in mind that taunt chip, while it does deal massive damage to enemies, he is going to get massive damage if he gets hit. And he's going to be waiting here. He gets sandwiched in between them. This is kind of a hairy situation. He's going to get out of there. He says, nope, I do not want to be in that sandwich, sir. He gets out of there. Going to clean this up. A good cycle would be before the taunt, or before the buffs run out. That would be a fast one, but it looks like he doesn't quite get a fast fight. He's playing it real safe. That taunt chip is scary.
That would have, I think that would have killed him without the defensive buffs on.
Yeah, I don't think he's got defensive buffs. He's been only using attack buffs, so...
Oh, so very hairy. He's truly playing the very hard game here. It's going to be very interesting on this Bokushi boss, just because of the amount of damage that this boss can put out. The electric water being the first obstacle, but again, a lot of the projectile patterns too.
So sorry, Myth is just going to have very clean attacks here. BlackGoldSaw going for the factory skip. I kind of want to see how he does this, because this is very much like the Soshi fight where he doesn't want to kill a leg, but I want to see how BlackGoldSaw does on this. So I think he's got it. I believe.
Oh my god, that damage is ridiculous. So he just does have to wait out the first phase, but just rips Bokushi a new one and just tears through that fight, going on to core 1 now. GoldSaw having a little bit of issues with this clip here. This pipe clip, if you go too far to the left or the right, you'll just dive right through, and to the right you'll infinite plunge like you just kind of saw him do there.
So sorry, there's a lot to unpack it for both runners right here. What Mytherium just did was take that core surrounded by dead robots, what we call hill strats, where you dash directly to the hill and then it kind of follows you up and it allows you to get really easy free damage on him. And with that taunt +6, he's just going to melt everything. Anything he sees, melted.
Taunt 6 is just absolutely insane. I don't think I've seen damage like this. We will see GoldSaw finally getting the clip out, and let's see how he does. A little bit off position for this clip here. Unfortunately, he's not going to hit the trigger because of his initial plunge angle. He was too far away from the door to glide in before teleporting back up. And it does get very annoying up top there on the bar, because if you go too far deep into the bar, you just get stuck in falling, and if you go too far back out, you clip and bounce like we see GoldSaw doing.
Absolutely.
Pascal as well, teleporting to where you were standing before. He'll oftentimes stand right in the middle of the bar and push you one way or the other. It can be quite annoying when you don't get it first time.
Absolutely. So Myth coming up on these enemies, and this is going to trigger another person. Another core, this snaky core, and I would imagine that he's going to go for the 1 cycle since he does have taunt +6, and so he's going to slow this down. Normally you kill this boss by making him pop down. It looks like he's having a little trouble getting them to connect, but you know what? He gets it perfectly fine. These enemies are ice cubes, and Mytherium is a flamethrower. They are just getting melted faster than you can believe because of this taunt +6 chip. Gets that 1 cycle. Normally that ball falls down, you have to attack that, but no, he doesn't care about that. Then uses a quick dialogue cancel, and now he's going to go into the very last fight. 4 phases of Eve. We are in the WWE Super Slam between 2B and Eve, and we have 4 rounds. Total knockout.
Jumping back to GoldSaw, unfortunately on part 2 of the skip, he did end up missing the trigger and falling down, so he will have to run through the rest of Deep Factory. Unfortunately, danger of the Crushers here too, but see how Mytherium deals with this fight. Again, with the monster damage from Taunt 6, it's going to be a very quick section. He's going to get a lot of the phase skips on Eve, but he does have to be very, very careful not to get hit here.
Absolutely. So this part, he is going to try and deal enough damage. Normally you have a hacking section where like you don't actually go into the hacking, but it takes time for 9S to quote-unquote hack Eve. But he's just going to deal enough damage. If Eve doesn't reach full health, then he skips phase 2, and that is huge. That's what he's looking to do here. He's trying to do that, deals enough damage, perfectly fine. Gets it, no problem, because of that top +6 chip going into phase 3.
Yeah, normally we'd have to do another modified version of the double damage glitch, which is a double damage glitch with pod slow-mo. There's too much going on to fully explain it right now, but it's a lot more inputs. It can be very, very complicated if you don't have it practiced down. But with that taunt 6, Mytherium just does enough damage to straight up phase skip without even getting that into his rotation.
This is going to be very terrifying. He's obviously not going to go for melee strats. You can jump yourself at Eve to deal extra damage, but because he's got that taunt +6, he's in a very hairy situation. If he gets hit by these, he's pretty much gonzo, if I'm being honest. And so that's why he's got these skill salves. Skill salves make your pod program, the laser, come up quicker. So he's going to be using those and gets that. He's going into phase 4. This is going to be very hairy because you have less movement. You don't have your pod program. You only have your Gatling fire or your rockets.
Yeah,
this is going to be hairy.
I think Mytherium probably going to opt out of taunting here just to avoid the one shot, since it can be very. There are some
still
things
taunting.
That get close.
He's still taunting.
Holy moly, the absolute man. He's going to try and avoid all these attack patterns. He's going to keep his space so that the patterns do spread out a bit. Very clean. Not quite getting the instant drop because of his safe play there, but you can't really blame him. When anything's a one-shot, you really do have to take it careful.
Absolutely. We've got B1ackGoldSaw just kind of toying with Soshi. By the way, that is the end of the run for Mytherium. The timer is going to stop in a second when this dialogue is over.
Again, nice. I'm looking at the chat, but Litz saying, can we root taunt +6 in? Unfortunately, I don't think Litz was here to experience the Emil RNG that Mytherium had to go through to get that chip.
B1ackGoldSaw makes me nervous with how long he waits to recover sometimes. He is an absolute man. Just, whoo! Yeah, I'm kind of curious as well if Mytherium gets in the chat. I'm going to switch over the audio over to... Oh, you got it already. Perfect.
No, somebody else got it. That wasn't me.
Oh.
We got a ghost in here. Probably Cyclone. But yeah, we're gonna see B1ackGoldSaw now finishing up that Soshi fight. Decently clean. He is running behind PB time. I think he's a little bit behind from a couple of spots earlier in the run.
Mm-hmm. So
I don't think he is on pace to PB here, as the last section of game does take about 10 minutes.
Yeah. So he is also going to be coming up on the... Oh, hey, is that Mytherium?
Heyo.
Yo.
Dude, for what it's worth, a lot of stuff went right. I lost count on Emil RNG after 6.
Something like 11 or
all right.
Something close
real
up
quick,
there.
B1ackGoldSaw showing off the last factory movement that we were fortunate enough to see Mytherium skip with that very interesting pod launch one. But he is going to go back and do this last prologue skip that we saw at the very beginning of the run. Again, to me, a very poetic thing. A little bit of full circle. He's going to get over this and do those final last little movement optimizations.
It's quite weird. He had a pretty tight angle on that mini-map lineup. Oh, unfortunately, does recover it, doesn't fall fully into the lava, but I don't think he knows about double jumping, because the difference between the prologue run is you do have the robots ready to jump into the lava on the side of the pit, so if you don't double jump, you do go within range.
He's opting to go all the way back.
Very weird. Normally at this point, if I'd fallen in, I'd just take the route normal because you're going to lose more time going for the out of bounds here.
Guess he wants the practice possibly, which I can't blame him. So, okay, yeah. So since the robots have jumped into the pit and killed themselves, he is going to be able to do that pod launch without locking onto anything.
But yeah, Myth, let's talk about that taunt 6 damage. That is insane.
Yeah. Dude, I honestly really like it. I love the feeling of taunt plus 6 and taunt plus 3.
It makes the run
regular
so much
normal
more
mode just doesn't do it for me.
You just can't get excited anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it is really playing with a knife's edge when you can pretty much zero cycle every single boss, but they can zero cycle you right back.
Yeah, for a good number of them, it's like for Soshi and Bokushi, I didn't really have to slow-mo for anything.
No thanks.
So, like, just zero cycling those bosses was sort of an interesting experience.
That was nuts. So what was going through your mind after 13 attempts at a meal?
Oh, was it 13?
I believe it was 13.
Around there. It was like 12 or 13. It was definitely above 10.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We
I lost count. I lost count after like 5 or 6, but I don't know. I kind of felt like Emil was really kind of running me dry there. Like I had recently, and more sort of notably, like in E-ending runs, really just sort of getting lucky on my Emil RNG, and I guess at one point it just had to cave, and I guess this was the run.
You poor summer soul, not experiencing the hatred from Emil
I've
RNG.
seen bad RNG. Believe me, I've seen bad RNG myself, but like,
You should
sometimes
watch
it
that.
comes and goes.
Yeah, I have an A to Z somewhere that I'll send you some clips of 3 different RNG sections. But B1ackGoldSaw in this final boss rush as well, starting with Soshi, but broken up by those little glitches. He's going to be coming up into Resistance Camp as well, and he's going to be going and doing this final attack. We'll see how different everything is without the taunt plus 6 chip. Really great showcase from Mytherium for that taunt plus 6. Really interesting stuff. I have a couple questions.
Sorry, just before you go,
Yeah, go for it.
I was looking at B1ackGold's splits, but I think he's only a couple seconds behind PB here, actually.
Oh, wow.
Because before going into a burning resistance camp, it went red, like right as he was getting to the mouth of the entrance. So I think he's only a couple seconds back. Maybe with a clean couple bosses towards the end, he can actually PB. It will be pretty tight, though, because if his PB is what he set in the race, it would be an hour 51:07. That's already getting pretty tight.
But that is loadless.
That is loadless, too, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's loadless. So the 151 would be most likely loadless, so he does have a pretty decent chance.
Yeah, if you take into account that a usual A-ending run, the difference between loadless and RTA is usually between 1.5 minutes and 2 minutes. Yeah, he could be pretty close here.
So Myth, I have a couple questions if you don't mind.
Yeah, shoot.
I like to ask 2 every time. There are 2 kind of standard ones, and then a few that I like to ask on a runner-by-runner basis. But the first one is, since I don't like ending on the worst note, were there any parts where, like, any specific parts where you're just incredibly frustrated with yourself? You're just like, I can't believe that this happened, or, you know.
Dude, what was it? After I had finished the fetch quests at Resistance Camp, I messed up the second barricade, and that was like because what happened? It dropped my heavy input, so I dashed to go over the top of it and then do the heavy, so that way I would do a plunge and get enough height to get over the edge of the barricade. But it dropped my input, and it just made me fall all the way down to the bottom, and then failing that twice like that just oof.
Sorry to cut you off. Interesting thing here about the Bokushi fight that we'll see GoldSaw doing. Oh my god, he's so close with these pots. It's so scary, but we actually saw him opt not to go into the electrified water and just kind of wait out that stage. Normally in the run we do take the first hit because you don't take any more damage from the water for about 10 seconds, so you can just pot it off and keep going. It looks like he will opt to
Oh.
just wait it out. Oh my god,
GoldSaw just makes me so nervous.
so close.
He waits so long to heal, and I get so scared.
There's about
That's my
5 or
boy.
6 close calls on that Bokushi fight where
That's
he was
my
just
boy.
within one more hit of getting capped.
He's such a legend.
He does pull off the hill strike, get it in the right position. We'll see him just rip this core down.
To be honest, I'm very much like that in terms of like Eve. On a lot of like my slow-mo and pod launches into the Eve fight, I didn't do it today, but in other circumstances, like my healing is like it's a complete afterthought. Like
Yeah,
the act of
likewise.
just using health potions is really sort of an abstract thing at this point for me.
Yeah, especially you being a very hard runner. You
Too many.
are just avoiding getting hit in general.
Yeah, I don't know how many recoveries I finished the run with, but it was like 1 or 2 or
Come
something.
in, Pascal.
Yeah, I definitely see you. I see you playing a lot safer than some of the other runners, especially with that Tom +6 chip. But
Yeah.
it is going to be. It's probably going to be a little bit difficult for GoldSaw to PB, but it's definitely still possible. I mean, if we see some really great fights here, which I feel like it could happen. I want to see it happen.
Again, so his PB in loadless time is 150. I actually I won't say PB, but his previous race was an hour 51:07. Since we are running an RTA, it is going to be about 1.5 to 2 minutes slower.
I think that might be his PB because his seed time was 154. So
Yeah.
I think it might be presumptuous of me to say, but I think the 151 might be it. So we're going to see the other thing where it's not the 1 cycle. We are going to see the little golden ball drop, and he's going to get rid of it very quickly. Doesn't fall on the fence. It can fall on that little fence and give you a little bit of trouble. Gets rid of it, no problem.
And we will be going into Eve now. Again, cutting it pretty close. Eve, depending on the runner, can take about 2 minutes.
It's Eve.
I want to say, like for a really fast Eve, you're looking at 1:45.
Okay, so chat, if you can humor me and just give GoldSaw your energy. Any emote you feel like
Okay.
that gives energy, anything, just give him all the energy you can right now. He's going to need some really good RNG on this last part. He's going to need some really good combat. He's going to need everything really great. Give him your energy if you can.
So first thing we're looking out for here is platform skip. Ideally, you want to get the health bar down before a certain threshold where Eve would throw up platforms. Yeah, 154th phase 3 or 4. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Sorry, not the whole thing, but yeah. Give me your energy. Oh, unfortunately, getting grabbed there. It's gonna make it very close on the platform spot.
Okay, come on.
Looks
Come
like
on, come
he
on.
did the platform skip.
Oh,
Oh my god,
totally
he's so close though.
Yeah, Eve wanted to do it, but he gets the platform skip. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good phase 1.
I don't know if GoldSaw can do the double damage glitch with pod slow-mo here to get the phase skip, so ideally you wouldn't
Yeah.
want to attack Eve here.
So it does lose a little bit of time.
Damn it. We'll never get anywhere.
And he doesn't have any attack chips, so he doesn't have any criticals, so it's incredibly difficult to do that. Most even top runners have a really hard time with that without any attack chips.
He is doing pod slow-mo though here. I don't think he's not actually doing double damage glitch.
Heal!
He's doing normal damage glitch pod slow-mo.
Heal, please!
Oh my goodness.
He makes
He's
me
not
so
running
scared.
defensive buffs either, so it just adds another level of spook factor.
So I will be very curious to see what his loadless time is. He's going into phase 3. He's only got 2 more phases left.
Oh no, BlackGoldSaw in the chat.
Oh,
That's not spelling very
that's
good news
not-
for this Eve phase
I'm
3.
gonna imagine he pod launches into. That's my guess. Pod launches into two of them, unless he's not a pod launcher. I
I'm
don't know
assuming
who
it's
is.
probably the straightforward attack
Oh,
where
yeah.
he just spams oh no.
I was right.
Ugh.
Incredibly unfortunate, but fortunately, I think it just puts you at the beginning of that phase.
Yeah, it restarts you at phase 3.
Yeah.
So not too much time lost here, but again, being with how close it is to PB, that might have cost it.
That is unfortunate, but that's That's the risky run when you do defensive buffless, and you know it's rough. I respect him for it a lot. I can't do it. I'm a scaredy cat personally. So he's going for oh man, heal.
Heal. Oh my god, please.
Oh my god,
GoldSaw!
heal! GoldSaw! Oh, okay, he's looking for his body? No, he's not looking for his body. He doesn't care about his body. Who needs a body?
I can't watch GoldSaw, he's too...
Oh.
Oh my god, he's gonna pod launch right into it. This is so scary.
Guys, this fight is rough when you're at level 19. No defensive buffs. He needs to... He's got to stay on top of his heals. This is nuts, guys. This is crazy. This man is a madman. Also, Mythal...
He just has no fear.
Oh!
Oh my god.
My gosh, my heart beating.
You know,
Too fast.
having a little fear, you know, it's the spice of life.
I can't sit still
Fear
with this
is
run,
the
though.
spice of life.
This is like spicing up your food and dumping
Oh.
in the entire pepper shaker. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I am sweating right now. Like GoldSaw has my respect.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry, guys. The commentary has just devolved into grunting because I can't think properly because I'm so anxious about this right now.
He is being careful with some of his waves, though.
Definitely.
He is. It just goes in with the attack patterns that Eve throws, and he just buffs, or he heals really late after all of them.
All right, so he gets through phase 3. He's on phase 4. It's kind of like a checkpoint. So
I think actually, no, if you do die here, you go back to phase 3.
Yeah, it goes back to phase 3. But
trying to sound
it is a little bit more of a difficult situation that he's in now.
I mean, thankfully, he's still got a lot of health pots, but... Because that's the one thing you... Oh my goodness, he's in just the worst spot for that attack pattern, but he's on his buffs this time.
He might be stuck in a corner. I know that happens.
Eve, just stay right there. Just stay right there, Eve. Just stay there.
Ideally, you don't want Eve to fly away, since all you're doing is pod firing. You want him to be as close as possible, so most of the autos hit. Some people will even just aim manually just because of that. And you want to be on top of him for when he drops too out of this phase.
That's what I was gonna say. Because if you're on top of him when he drops, then it skips a little like cutscene type thing and just saves a little bit of time. Oh, I'm so anxious. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
And the instant drop.
Must have been corrupted when Eve detached
That was scary.
Alright, so unfortunately it doesn't look like it's a PB for GoldSaw. Still a crazy run in the sense that it just had us on the edge of our seats for the entire thing.
Both players really just making it. Jesus. Bringing into this as nervous as possible.
Hey.
You guys
that
are
was... Alright. So I forgot when I reinstalled the game for a fresh reinstall before this to turn off the DLC. And I loaded the wrong control scheme right at the beginning.
Oh.
So I had the wrong controls and DLC.
Did you eventually change that?
No. I kept going.
Wonka as.
Okay, that explains the Let's Play situation.
Yeah, we were wondering about
And
that.
Deep Factory couldn't go well because pressing on both sticks for self-destruct to get down there. You can see I didn't even make it out of the pillar.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. The default control scheme is rough. So I guess I've asked Myth already, but I had a follow-up question that I didn't ask because I got caught up in the heat of your the final parts of your run. But I like to ask two questions that are kind of two sides of the same coin, and I like to get the bad one out of the way first. Is there any one part of the run where you were just really frustrated, just with anything, how it worked out? You were just not happy with that you think you...
That's usually A2. This time it felt
Likewise.
like it went better than my normal A2s, but she's usually a guaranteed time loss for me.
All right. So then the follow-up question is obviously, is there anything you felt like you did really well over what you normally do and that you were really happy with? Both of you guys. Go ahead.
Not falling in the pit this time.
Yeah, you got a really great voidless. Or I mean void out.
Yeah, I did void out. I don't do voidless for that.
Yeah, I saw that. I made a note of it. It was really clean.
I was really happy with how I did auto scroller coaster because in that moment my heart was going pretty fast into it, and I'm kind of happy because I think in my other 2 races as well that I never got a chance to actually show that skip off. I think both times I failed it, so at least having a chance to show it off this time around was nice.
Oh yeah, Myth, I didn't see. Did you get any crit chips and all that?
I actually got 2 crit plus zeros, but I sold them and bought taunt plus 6.
Yeah, that +6.
God,
So
that thing melts.
because the mill RNG took so bloody long, I was actually kind of scared that if I died anywhere, GoldSaw, you probably would have taken it.
I saw that for a little bit. You and me were not that far away, and then I died to Adam and messed up Deep Factory, and
Yeah. If you had like a clean run all the way through, I think it was at A2. You had just defeated A2, and I had just gotten taunt plus 6, and we were basically at the same part.
I'm 6 minutes behind my PB, so this whole run was just adding up.
Is your PB RTA or loadless?
Yeah, I thought it was an RTA. But
Well, I think GoldSaw, in your live
I
split
was
you
sure
have.
I set it up the way that you had you said in the Discord, but I guess not.
Maybe. I think the one at the very bottom is loadless. It's just cut off in the stream. The 2 that are most visible are real time.
Yeah, because you would have, I think you would have been closer to your PB than the time showing. But
I'm still new to live split.
oh, I totally understand. It can be a difficult beast.
Especially when it gives you issues.
Oh
Smile.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, no, like my live split's been terrible for the last couple weeks, where it's just been after getting to City Ruins, it just potatoes and takes up like 10% of my CPU.
Yeah, when live split's running, my game tanks hard for some reason.
Yeah, for me, I think it was something to do with sum of best or maybe subsplits. I'm not too sure though.
Unoptimized game. Wow.
Super unoptimized.
Myth, I have a question for my own personal.
Yeah, sure.
Why? So the second half of your run was really cool. A lot of cool stuff. A lot of really fancy, swaggy stuff. Why is your first half so boring?
Why is my first, like, the early game?
You didn't go for angles swag. You didn't go for like. Where was the swag?
I do have to say, in terms of going for angle swag and prologue, I'm actually not that good at that. I always mess it up, and I always know that I'm gonna lose more time than I'm actually gonna gain out of it.
Yeah, I'm just giving you some crap. It was a really fun race to watch, and I really loved your routing changes at the end, especially.
Yeah, Myth, I saw some of that swag you were pulling off. It's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Also, that was a good Shabu clip, whatever it's called.
Yeah, dude, that was really clean.
That was
Like,
fast.
it only took 2 pod launches? It took a little while to set it up, but once I actually clipped through, I did, the triple pod spin into a heavy, SD heavy, and then plunge, and I got a really, really long plunge that made me completely skip having to do the lift and everything. I was scared for a second I was gonna miss it and just land either in the lava or like out of bounds in the lava.
Yeah. But yeah, that's good. That's probably the best I've seen it in a run.
That might actually be better than what I had recorded, if anything.
Yeah, it was good.
Alrighty. Well, it was a very interesting race to watch. You guys can continue going on, but I actually have I have somewhere to go, so
Yeah,
I was
gonna...
just going for the time slot.
Yeah, we're...
So thanks for the very interesting run to watch.
Yeah,
got to
thank
see
you
a
for
lot of new
commentating,
things
please.
today. Thank you for the
thanks for
commentary, Shabu. It was a lot of fun. That run was a lot of fun to do because it was like there was always new things to talk about. I don't think we had a point where we didn't have one thing rolling over.
A lot of talking.
All right, thanks everybody.
A lot of spaghetti.
Take care, 6.
Alright guys, I think I'm gonna sign off too. My voice is kind of tired.
Peace out.
So thanks for the race, guys. If you want to follow these guys, their stuff is in the chat right now. Exclamation R or exclamation C. Follow these guys. Really great people. Honestly, lovely personalities during streaming. Will answer any questions you have. Just awesome dudes. Give them a follow. And yeah, I appreciate you guys watching the race, listening to me and 6 commentate, and just enjoying these guys show off this game that we love. So thank you guys for running and giving us a really fun race to watch.
And thanks for having
No
us.
problem.
Alright, so thanks for watching. We'll
GG,
see you
man.
guys in the next one.
GG, my dude.
Bye bye.
Take care, everybody.